Now, the pleasure is mine tonight, or this afternoon, or this evening, to be your Toastmaster of the evening. And tonight we have with us our 2021 World Champion of Public Speaking, Verity Price. And I will now say a special welcome to our special guest to this extraordinary meeting, Toastmaster Verity. Verity is someone who approaches life a little differently. She's gone from walking 1,200 kilometers across France and Spain in hiking boots in memory of her parents, to performing in high heels, to packed houses in Nashville and New York. From not having money to record her debut album, to becoming one of the world's first online crowdfunders. From being terrified of speaking in public, to being crowned the 2021 World Champion of Public Speaking. She's all about facing fears, finding your inner voice, and sharing your truth. As a Toastmasters 2021 World Champion, Verity captured the judges and thousands of people's imagination with her winning speech, a great read, an inspiring invitation to improve our lives by writing a different story. Helping people to do just that is Verity's passion, and today she's here to help us to do that. Madam Zoom Master.
Thank you. Well, hello, hello, hello. I believe it's lunchtime for you, dinner time for me. Lovely to be here and to spend some time with all of you, chatting about my journey to becoming world champion, lessons learned, and maybe some tips and tricks as to how you can write a winning speech yourself. I've been asking for permission to share my screen. If I could get that permission, that would be amazing, because I've just got some slides, thank you, that are just to keep us on track. I know I've got about 30 minutes with you, so let's get going. We're now a small, intimate crowd, so when I ask questions, I hope you're all going to pop on the chat and we can really feel like we're having a conversation together, like we're in the room. So I want to ask you, the first question I want to ask is, do you like winning? Anything, just pop it in the chat. If you like winning, just give me a yes. Absolutely, I love winning. And it could be a raffle, the lottery, the World Championship of Public Speaking. Who here enjoys winning? Is our chat enabled? Yes. Oh, I've got a prize in the room. I don't often have someone with the same surname as me. Hi, Cindy. Absolutely, yes, indeed. Okay, fantastic. Well, there's a story of a man who loved winning. And the thing he wanted to win most was the lottery, like many people. So he would get in front of his TV set on a Saturday night and he would watch those numbers being drawn and he wouldn't win. So I'd be back the next Saturday watching the numbers and he wouldn't win. And Saturday after Saturday after Saturday, this went on and he never won. Eventually one Saturday, in frustration, after having once again not won the lottery, he looked up at the sky and said, "Why? Why do you never let me win?" And a voice came down from above and said, "You might want to buy a ticket." So my fellow Toastmasters, March last year, I bought my ticket. I put my name in the hat. I signed up to join the Toastmasters International Speech Contest, and I decided to see how it would go. Now, you know how it went, but of course, when you enter something, you don't know that. You might hope that, but it's not guaranteed. I had what I call a positive premonition when I wrote the speech that I used for the semi-finals. I delivered it at my club as a club speech a few months before the contest. And the next day I was thinking about it and this voice said, "Verity, that speech could do really well in the speech contest." And I was like, yeah, maybe it could. And then another voice said, "And you could become the world champion." I was like, what? Me? Really? Are you kidding? And then a part of me said, what if that's true? If you don't enter, you'll never know. So I entered, put my name in the hat. I worked harder than I have ever worked in my life. I spent an average of 2 to 4 hours a day for the last 3 months working on my speeches, delivering them in more than 40 clubs in 16 countries on 5 continents. I recorded my speeches. I watched them. I took notes. I worked with mentors. I worked with Lance Miller as my coach. I gave it everything because a part of me had a feeling that I was going to win, but only if I gave it everything. And August last year, I heard the life-changing words that I was world champion. I'm still pinching myself, can't really believe it happened. But I've realized the reason it did happen was because last year, it wasn't the first time I'd ever entered, it was the third time. I had entered once in 2012 when my sister actually beat me and went all the way to the semi-finals. And I watched how much work went into a speech. So I just didn't enter again because it looked too hard. I always had a reason. Don't have the right speech, don't have the time, too busy this year. You might have had these reasons when it comes to contests. I entered in 2015, I got as high as division, and then I didn't enter for 6 years because I didn't feel like I had what it took and I didn't have a speech and I didn't have the time. And last year I entered because I felt that I had something that I could give. So I'm just interested to know from your perspective, because I've realized there's 2 things you need to win the World Championship of Public Speaking, or to at least enjoy the journey and go as far as you can. What do you think those 2 things are? Let's just pop in the chat. What are the 2 things you think you have to do really, really well in a speech contest? I'm interested to see what everyone thinks. What do you think it is that you have to do well in a speech contest? And there's no wrong answer here because everything we're going to put in the chat will be elements of what we need. So who wants to venture a guess? Perseverance. Oh, Susan, you are right. What else? What else? What else do we think? What do you have to have if you want to do well in a speech contest? Flowing information. Yeah, absolutely. Focus, a universal message. Oh, Daphne, I couldn't agree more. A good story. Don't even put a question mark there. Just own that. The will to win, a good speech. I love it. Motivation, patience with yourself. Yes, that's a good one. Confidence, an authentic story, confidence coming through a lot here. I love this. Okay, an excellent speech. Yes, that does make a big, big difference. Stick-to-itiveness. I love that. I didn't know that was a word, but I'm going to be using that. Vision, fun, a great idea. Okay, so we are all on track. If I had to take all of that and put it into 2 key things, it would be you have to have the right mindset and you have to have the right speech. So the right mindset is where the perseverance, the confidence, the stick-to-itiveness, I love that, is there. You know, the perseverance, all of that is there if you've got the right mindset. The right speech is when you've got the universal message, the great story, you're engaging, you're having fun. But without both of those, chances are you'll get as far as club, maybe area. So some people have got the right speech, but they've got the wrong mindset. They're not taking any feedback. They're not working with coaches. They're not practicing. They're only writing their speech for themselves. And they get to a certain level, and then they get knocked out by someone who's been working harder. And then other people have got the perfect mindset, but they've got the wrong speech. And so getting both at the same time is not easy. I think our biggest challenge is finding that story, that speech that we want to tell. So one of my tips is keep a story journal. Think of all the times in your life that you've encountered a challenge or a person that's changed you, shifted you, made you think, taught you something, and write them down. And then look at the ones that you enjoy talking about, because sometimes in there, you'll find the story that you want to tell. And then we've got to have that perseverance, being prepared to put in the time, put in the effort, which is hard. But when you've got, and I think someone put in their vision, when you've got a vision of what you're trying to achieve, it's amazing how you will make the time and find the time to follow your dream. I've never worked as hard as I worked last year, but I had my eye on the prize. Even though I knew there was 30,000 other Toastmasters that also had their eye on the prize, I was in it to win it for myself, to push myself to become the best speaker I can be. And we know how that turned out. But what I've realized is when it comes to this contest, when it comes to life, but let's talk about the contest. It's not a lottery. There's no luck involved. The people who win work super, super hard. But only one person this year is guaranteed to win this contest. Every other Toastmaster that enters is guaranteed to grow. And that's why I think people should enter and should keep entering, is that the growth you get will outweigh the wins. I'm very grateful that I have a trophy at home, but the trophy is something I could have bought in a store. The growth I earned. And so I'm just going to say to you, if you want to do this contest, if you want to see how far it can take you, buy your ticket, sign up for the growth, and enjoy the journey, because that's the gift that I received, and I believe every single one of us will receive. So when it comes to this idea of the gift that we get by competing, I also want to talk about, giving gifts, receiving gifts. I don't know what different traditions you have in Antigua, but for me in South Africa, Christmas is a big day. We love getting gifts. I love getting gifts. But a few years ago, I came downstairs and our Christmas tree looked strange. Normally there were piles of presents packed under the branches, and this year there were none. And I had this sense of, and that kind of anxiety, but also anticipation, because we decided to do things a bit differently that year. And what we were doing was having a white elephant Christmas. I'm not sure, and again, it's different statements in different words, but a white elephant, not an animal. It's a thing that you own that has no value, no point. You've left it at the back of a cupboard. It's the top of the shelf. You never use it. You don't even know why you bought it. And so we decided to have a Christmas where each person had to wrap their white elephant that was sitting at home gathering dust, but wrap it so spectacularly that everyone else would want to unwrap it. And so this made for an incredibly humorous Christmas lunch. As you can imagine, there was big gifts, small gifts, funny shaped gifts, and people were all vying to see which one they would get, only to unwrap a novelty sized coffee cup or a never before used cookbook. My absolute favorite, a rusty, dusty hamster cage. We're talking true white elephants. But what amazed me was the more beautifully the gift was wrapped, the longer it took to unwrap, the more curious the recipient was about what was inside, the more likely they were to love what they got. So I got the coffee cup and I thought, whoa, I'm going to turn this into a pot plant, like pot plant holder. My brother-in-law had a bachelor friend who was there, and he looked at the cookbook and was going, I'm going to impress my next date. And my cousin, who got the rusty hamster cage, looked at it absolutely incredulously and said, my daughter just said she wants a hamster. So before you wonder, why is Verity telling me about her crazy Christmas traditions? I'll tell you. In the 11 years I've been a Toastmaster, and in the 7 months it took me to win the World Championship last year, I've realized one key, super important lesson. And that is that a great speech is a gift that you give to your audience. And I think when we think about speeches like this, it changes the way we write them. So a speech is a gift that you give to your audience. And like our Christmas, it could be about a white elephant moment or memory in your life, something insignificant like running into a friend at the store and feeling embarrassed, or having a flat tire that you couldn't change, or a receptionist that once gave you a compliment. And if you've watched the World Champion speeches, you might notice I'm mentioning a few here. But these are white elephant moments. You could easily forget that they'd happened, but written right and delivered powerfully, they become World Championship speeches. So how do we do that? How do we make sure that when we give a gift to our audience in our speech, they want to take it home? And you have a choice. You have a choice how you wrap your gift. You could wrap it like this. I don't know about you. I'm not terribly inspired, but here's your present. If you really, really don't want to bother, you could just do this and let people know exactly what's coming. And I'm showing you this because sometimes as Toastmasters, we do this as early as our title. We've already given away the whole point of the speech. Like, there is zero intrigue for the audience. So please, if you're not going to take too much effort, rather wrap it like this. Or you could wrap it like this and get your audience kind of drawing in and wanting to find out what's in there and get inside. So I'm going to ask you, if I was giving you a gift right now, and a choice of gifts, do you want the bag or the box? Maybe just pop in the chat. Do you want the bag or the box? Which one do you want? Bag or box? Let me know. Giving you a gift right now. And actually, if you sign up for my newsletter, you do get a gift, because the whole speech I'm giving you now, you will get a little ebook. The box, the box, the box. Okay, some people want the bag, but most people want the box, because the box creates what we want to create as a speaker, which is curiosity. It looks like someone's taken time, they've made an effort, and it makes you curious. And so that's where we want to start. As speakers, there are three things you always want to create in your audience. And the first one is curiosity. And you can do that as early as your title. You want people to lean in and go, where's this going? So you can't tell them the importance of believing in yourself, because kind of now I know where it's going. The biggest lesson I've ever learned. Whoa, wow, what is that? I want to find out. If you look at previous world champions, we've had things like Changed by a Tire, The Ultimate Question, The Librarian and Mrs. Montgomery, The Most Unbelievable Story, A Great Read. They don't give the speech away, but they make you intrigued. So look for chances and ways to create curiosity in your speeches as early as possible and as often as possible. Things like going, and then do you know what happened? And a pause keeps your audience on the edge of their seats. Or you will never believe what happened next. Look for those moments that stop them and keep them leaning in. So you want to create curiosity, and then you want to create connection. Okay, an audience that is connected to you is going to want to take home your message, take home your gift. So how do we create connection? We talk about universal experiences, and someone said a universal message. We've got to speak about things that every single human being has felt or experienced, or fears or wishes for. And we have to be really careful to make sure we're not just speaking to our interests. So things like shame, excitement, disappointment, yearning for big dreams, things not quite working out, these are universal experiences. If you've watched my World Champion speech, you'll remember that I start that as a little girl, my dad used to read stories to me while I sat on his knee. That's a pretty universal experience. People had adults reading to them or telling them stories when they were a child. So as early as I could, I wanted to create connection for the audience to go, oh, I've had that experience. And I had another scene where I ran into a friend whose life was amazing and I was having a bad day. And again, men, women alike, we always have that friend that somehow is doing better than us. So it was an experience I'd had, but it's also a universal experience. So look at your speeches, look at the scenes that you're creating and go, am I creating connection in my audience? Will they identify with what I'm going through here and have felt similar ways? Because if you create curiosity and then connection with your audience, you will get commitment at the end to your message. If they've been with you the whole way, they are far more likely to want to take it home and make it meaningful. Okay, so 3 things to always be looking to create in your audience. Easier said than done, but that's why we work with mentors. That's why we practice our speeches. That's why we keep working on our craft. And from there, let's look at what are the steps to, in my humble opinion, writing a winning speech. And this is on lots of reflection after winning and realizing this kind of aha moment for me, that if I approach every speech as a gift I'm giving to my audience, that will transform the way I speak. So I'm going to unpack this with you by looking at the idea of a gift. So there's going to be 4 things that you need to remember, and there's going to be a G, an I, an F, and a T. So it's really easy to remember. So the G stands for get clear on your message. And that's why I love that someone said universal message as one of the key ingredients to winning. At the end of the day, the message is what your audience takes home. It's what they make meaningful. It's what they connect to. It's what they commit to. So if you are entering the speech contest this year, ask yourself one question. If you have 7 minutes to speak to the world, what would you want to say? And then look at moments in your life that will help you share that message. So I knew that I wanted to share how I had transformed my life at 40, and that it was possible to turn your life around even when you're at rock bottom. It took me 90 days of working on that speech before I landed on my message statement of write a different story. So this is not always a quick process. I started with get happy, be grateful, look for the good, change the way you look at things. And I finally got to my statement of write a different story. So what you're looking for is a statement that's 10 words or less, that's easy to repeat, that has an action attached to it, like reach out, do you validate, write a different story, the victories in the try. Again, go look at previous world champions. They give you a clear message that you can take home and make meaningful for yourself. This takes time. This requires feedback from other people. Sometimes we can't get to the statement on our own. As I say, it took me 90 days. I had rehearsed and practiced at more than 40 clubs. It was feedback at a club 10 days before the finals, where someone challenged me on my message statement of change the way you look at things, saying that's a lot like Wayne Dyer's quote. I was like, oh, that is. And I went and re-looked at it and I came up with my message statement. But this is ultimately the gift you're giving your audience. So really spend time saying, what am I trying to say? What's the thing that changed me that might change someone else? Then you want to spend a lot of time intentionally crafting your story. And I truly believe you could take something as simple as the time your mother taught you to boil an egg, and you could win the world championships with it. Because if you told that story in an engaging and compelling way, you'd win over the judges, you'd win over the audience. It doesn't have to be a profound moment. It needs to be a sincere moment that you enjoy talking about. So how do we do this? Could be talking about boiling an egg. You could be talking about getting your MBA. It might be a big thing. It might be a small thing, but some key things you want to do. Create the setting of your story as quickly as possible. Establish the time, the place, and who's taking part. So you want the setting and the hero as quickly as possible established and simply so the audience can see it. In my speech, I was 40, going nowhere, in a spare room, eating ice cream, watching Netflix. There you see it. This girl, her life is not looking good. Okay. And in that, I've also established the obstacle, because good stories have got tension. That's movies, everything. It's always about the drama and the tension. So you've got your hero in their setting, their time and place, facing an obstacle. Now you want to kind of escalate that so that the audience feels curious and connected as to how your hero is going to overcome it. In my case, I did things like setting up how bad things were and then going to the shops and running into a friend whose life was better than mine, and then getting home and my life was a mess. And just when the audience is thinking it can't get any worse, that's when you want to bring in some resolution. The thing that's going to help the hero move past their obstacle, to transcend their problem and become transformed. Now, the resolution needs to come from an external source, someone or something that teaches you the lesson. It could be an inanimate object. The egg could be the guru that teaches you a lesson. In my case, it was my dad and a letter that I found from him. And when you receive that message, whatever that lesson is, it's good to put a little bit of resistance in, because we're human and we resist change. I don't know about you. I've started many diets, then I fall off them, then I come back on and I try harder and then I get help. Life's like that. So in a speech, you want to show that the egoic struggle so that the audience goes, oh yeah, I also do that. So I got the message, write a different story. I went, come on, Dad, how do I write a different story? So I immediately resisted it. I went to Facebook to check and go, well, everyone else's lives are wonderful. This is why I can't write a different story. And then the letter said to me, Verity, write a different story. And then I started reflecting on it by remembering how my dad had lived the message. And so my change of heart took a little while in the speech, and the audience could witness my dad's transformation, so that when I shared how I'd written a different story, it made it easier for them to go, oh, I can see how she changed, how she shifted. And only then do you deliver your point. Because by that stage, they should be committed to your message. So you don't have to sell them why they need to change. You can just offer it up saying, this is how it changed me, over to you. Take it home, make it meaningful. So just to summarize that, because I know there's a lot. Powerful settings where it's very easy to know where we are, time, place, age, whatever it is. Quickly establish the setting, who the hero is, the obstacle or challenge they're facing, the resolution that comes in the form of the message that's going to transform them, and then your point. And you'll see that spells out story, S-T-O-R-Y. So just really look at the way you're writing stories. Are they short, vivid sentences? Are you finding metaphors, analogies, similes, clever ways to paint a picture to keep the audience engaged? Are you using dialogue so that they can feel the tension, internal dialogue as well? So really look at how do you build that story so that your audience is just hanging on every word. So the important word there is audience, because that is my third step. And this is the reason I believe I became world champion. You have to fill in the gaps for your audience. You know your story. They don't know your story, which means the way you tell your story, you might leave out details that they need because you know your story so well. And I found that out when I was touring clubs, and I had more than 200 Toastmasters give me feedback, which is a lot of feedback. But what came through was, Verity, you turned your life around at 40, I'm 65, where's the hope for me? I was like, oh, wow. I hadn't thought to mention that my dad lost his job at 60. And then I came up with one of my favorite phrases in my speech was, it doesn't matter what chapter of your life you're in. And it was because I'd received that feedback, that was a gap for someone, that they weren't connecting with my message, that I could shift to make my speech more inclusive. Some people wanted to know how long it took me to turn my life around. They said, well, you say you moved house, you met your husband, you had a baby, but if I'm trying to change my life, how long does that take? I hadn't thought to put that in. So you need to ask your audience. I said, oh, it took 6 months for me to move. It took me a year before I met my husband, 4 years before I had a baby. So if you don't ask your audience, you're never going to know what the gaps are. And in a speech contest, your judges are your audience. So you want to make sure that they're not left questioning anything. So really spend time getting feedback, engaging with mentors, coaches, club members to make sure your speech is filling in all those gaps. And then your last step, very important step, is to tie it all together. I've seen amazing speeches by Toastmasters where they've had all the elements of a great speech, but by the time they've got to their conclusion, I'm left with quite a few threads that they've started, but I'm not sure what happened. So this is why simpler is better. Shorter sentences are better. Less scenes are better. One core message is intrinsic. You have to have one core message. So this, if you're doing this right, by the time you get to your conclusion, in theory, you should be able to tie back to your introduction, to one of the obstacles, to your message, to one last call to action. And in my case, I even managed to tie all the way back to the title. So I really wrote my speech going, how do I tie everything I've said so far up in my conclusion? And if you haven't watched my speech, please go watch it so this makes more sense. But if you have, then you might remember that towards the end of my speech, I started concluding by saying, you know what I've realized? Reading fairy tales is great for my son. I started with my dad reading fairy tales to me. I then go on to say, if our life is a book, every day you need to decide, is it being written for you or by you? My dad had said to me, my life is a book. I then go on when my dad reminded me, so now I'm referring back to the letter, that I was the author of my life. My life changed, and I'd already explained how it changed. And then I finally handed it back to the audience. So if you're ready for a change, or you want to start a new chapter, or you're looking for a miracle, and those were 3 phrases I had said earlier in the speech, then all that was left for me to do was say, pick up your pen and write a different story. And my last sentence was, trust me, it'll make for a great read, which was my title. So this is not simple. I'm not going to give you any illusions. I worked for 100 days on that speech relentlessly. I wrote 32 versions. Like many finalists and champions before me, I've spoken to more than 30, and the average amount of speech revisions is 30. The average amount of clubs visited is 40. I was not unique. The average amount of times that they delivered their speech, 200. And the average amount of time spent working on their speeches in the last 3 months, 1 to 4 hours a day. So there's a lot of work that goes into turning a speech into a gift. But remember, that gift could be from a white elephant moment or memory in your life. So there's nothing in your life right now that might not have value. Sometimes people go, I need to have achieved something big to become the world champion. And I go, no, people have won talking about changing a flat tire. So you have the stories inside of you. It's how you craft it. It's how you spend the time getting clear on your message, intentionally crafting that story so it's delightful to listen to, asking your audience what the gaps are you need to fill in for them, and then tying it all together so that when you finish, they really feel like they have received a gift. Bottom line, I hope you're going to buy your ticket. I hope you're going to put your name in the hat. I hope you're going to look at your life and find the gift that you want to give to the world, because regardless of how far you go in this competition, regardless of who wins this year, you will be guaranteed the growth that comes from pushing yourself as a speaker, as a Toastmaster, and as a person. And you can take it from me, you'd be crazy not to try, because it's in the trying that we become more. And if I can ask you to do nothing else, it's please, when you leave this meeting, pick up your pen, write a winning story, turn your story into a gift, because I believe the world needs to hear every single one of our voices. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All right, so while we're waiting for the questions to come, type your questions in the chat, and we're gonna have a look at this special video. Madam Zoom Master, take it away.
Maybe I'm crazy thinking that this might work. Maybe I'm crazy wanting something that might hurt. Maybe it's madness to start something that might end. Maybe it's easier to just not begin. Now maybe delusional, believing this stands a chance, when so many before have proved that good things don't last. Seems a little bit naive to step in anyway, but I'd be crazy if I didn't take a step around the corner, confronting all that I don't know, the storms that I might weather, the times of being out of control, not having all the answers was never reason not to try. What if the right brothers hadn't
seeing some lovely questions come in, so you can give them to me.
Yes. And now it's the time for questions. So we have our first question. Would you say, this question is coming from Mark Young. Hi, Verity, thank you for the gift. Would you say that the T, where you hand it back to the audience, is the actual call to action?
I love that. And I could make it stand for the call to action, Mark. That is essentially the end of your speech, is the call to action. But why I'm saying tie it all together is so important is even in the finals, we sometimes see a fantastic speech with a brilliant speaker, but they've gone in quite a few directions. And by the time they're finished, our brain is confused as to what the actual message is. So your call to action needs to be absolutely at the end, but you also want to have made sure that anything you've referenced to earlier is complete and closed. So that's why I think the simpler the speech is, the easier it is to tie it all together. It's a challenge. It is a challenge, but you want that call to action. So I like that. I might have the T stand for two things now, if that's all right. Filling in the gaps for my audience.
All right, thank you. So we now go to the second question. How do you write from a protagonistic point of view and sharing that experience? How do you write from a protagonistic point of view and share the experience?
You ever ask that? Do they want to just explain a bit more what they're looking for me so I can answer it properly?
May I?
Sure.
I'm mobile, so excuse the noise. I find it easy when we have a presentation to write from an experience where, you know, you've gone through some challenges, you've gone through adversity. However, what I find is sometimes we tend to write from only one part of life's experiences, because we do have another side of ourselves, and that side is sometimes a great side to learn from as well. And so how do you write from that side without being portrayed as the dark side, if you understand what I mean? Because we do have the good and the flip side, but no one talks about the flip side.
How do you write from the flip side?
Flip side, yes, because it's easy to write from the good side, because at the end of the day, you are going to be the hero of your story. However, on the flip side, no one wants to talk about the flip side, but there's a lot going on the flip side that we can share from. So how do we write from that flip side?
I wonder, I feel like my speech that I did was that. I was showing a flip side, which I think why a lot of people resonated with it. I was saying like I was a loser and I was in bed and I was, you know, I was glossing over serious depression because it was a speech contest. Earlier versions, I almost gave too much and then it made the audience uncomfortable, which is also tricky. My sister got as far as division a few years ago, speaking about the dark voice in her that judges her, and it was hard for the audience to hear. So this is a challenge, and I do think we need to be more comfortable speaking about that dark side of us. But often, to make it palatable, there needs to be humor, especially in a speech contest. Let's be fair. I think if you're doing a keynote, it can be very different. But still, we can, and I mean, I was saying things like, for my ego, this was a scary tale. I was trying to show, like, I was struggling with where my life was at. But I was taking it from a humorous perspective, even though it was a really dark time. But I do think the world is ready for that openness. It's ready for that vulnerability. It's ready for us showing that questioning struggle that we have inside of ourselves, but we do need to do it in a palatable way. And that's where the feedback will really help you to find the best way to deliver it. I'm not sure if that answers your question.
It does.
It's a great question.
Yes, thank you.
All right, so our next question is from Faso. Should I write in my journal every day the challenges I faced and the way I solved it?
So the 2013 world champion, Prez Vasilev, he suggests that you do that. He says you scan your day, and there could have been something that happened in traffic. It might have been funny. It might have taught you a lesson about patience. If you write it down, it helps you to relive it and also capture it in the moment. That's not something I had been doing, but it is excellent, excellent advice. And not every day is going to have a story in it, but there are going to be days where you locked yourself out the flat or whatever it is, and something your neighbor came to help you, and then when you write it, you suddenly go, what did I learn from this? So it's a beautiful introspection. So I think all of us could gain from doing that.
Our next question we have from Anita D'Souza. It says, could you please repeat the stats you gave earlier on how many times people rehearse their speeches, practice and rewrite their speeches to make them good? I think you said it took you 100 days to write your speech.
Okay, so sadly, I don't have the stats in front of me, but the averages, it was like 70% of finalists and champions had written 30 or more versions of their speeches. The average word count is 110 words per minute. The lowest was 70. That was Prez Vasilev in 2013. And then I think the highest has been like 125, which was quite a fast speaker, but 110 was a really good average. I think 60% of finalists and winners start working on their speech 3 months before the contest. So they have got their eyes on the finals. They visit an average of 40 clubs, practice an average of 200 times, and then it was between 1 to 4 hours a day that they were working on their speeches in the last 3 months. I was around 3 to 4 hours. It was obsessive, to be honest. It would wake me up at 3 in the morning. And yeah, my winning speech, I started writing potential final speeches the day I won district. Even though I had to wait 2 months to see if I'd made the semifinals, I knew I couldn't wait to hear. I needed to be working. So I wrote 5 different speeches before I landed on a great read. And that came to me 100 days before the finals. And the interesting thing is that the first version was around how I used a Facebook challenge after reading my dad's letter called 100 Happy Days to get more positive, because that was a true part of the story. I ended up taking it out because men in the audience got tired of me saying the word happy. But the interesting thing was, as I wrote the speech at 3 o'clock in the morning, and I was writing about 100 days, I looked at the date and I saw that the final was exactly 100 days away. And so I started the 100 Happy Days challenge on Instagram, and day 100 I won. So it was pretty amazing.
Okay, so I'm seeing another question by, I think that would have answered the question for Anita D'Souza. So I now move to the next question, and I think in terms of review, I think she's asking for, she missed the number 3 things you need to create a winning speech. She got number 1, curiosity, number 2, connection, and number 3 was
commitment.
Commitment.
If you don't have commitment at the end of your speech, you've missed something. You have to, you know, do people. And one of the ways to check that is if you're doing a Google form feedback, what was the message you took away from my speech? If they can't tell you what the message is, you haven't got commitment.
All right. Moving on, we have Joni Laidlaw, and she's asking, is it to have a universal message in your speech?
Do you have to have one? Is that the question? 100%. If that message isn't speaking to everyone, you're going to be alienating aspects of your audience. And I mean, if you're speaking to a niche audience, then that's fine. But in Toastmasters, we're speaking to the world. So it needs to be a connecting message that people can identify with. And that's why I'm saying my earlier versions of the speech, I was saying, get happy or be grateful. For whatever reason, that seemed to alienate a lot of men. So I had to listen to that, and I had to find a message that men, women, young, old, different races, nations were like, I like that. I want to write a different story. So it takes work, but I think, and a universal message can be a simple message. Reach out, you know, validate people, be kind. They can be simple, but they can move people.
Okay, Vanessa White says, she's asking, How do you balance filling in the gap for the audience with staying within the allocated speech time? And how do you decide what stays in and what goes out?
So that is super challenging because sometimes you are adding in bits, but then you continue the editing process. In my semi-final speech, which I had gotten to win at district, it had done really well. And now I was practicing it around the world, and people were asking for things like I spoke about being at my mom's funeral, and we put a book out for people to write things about her. Everyone was like, what was in the book? I need to see the book. And I was like, I can't add that into my speech. But when I added in what they'd said, it made it very easy to go, this is a powerful part. What can I lose? So the editing, you need someone to help you. And so my sister was really good. She's quite brutal with, cut that sentence. You don't need that word. That's a waste of time. And it helped me because you're going to be close to your story. Have someone you trust help you go, you know what? That's not necessary. Let's see how the speech runs without it. And just keep refining that way.
All right, so Madam Eddie, Cindy, can you confirm if we would have exhausted all the questions?
I am going to give it a quick look and see.
While we're waiting for the question, allow me to share with you what Suzanne says. I have a story diary. I write down the things that spark my interest, just like you said. I started it when I became a Toastmaster, and when I need a topic, I refer to it. I actually write a summary of what I'm feeling at the time. And that is what we call work in progress.
That's amazing. I love that. I love that. And you know what? It's such good self-growth as well. It's beautiful. I've put the link to the speech. I saw Desiree asking. Ooh,
okay, and I see one more question coming. Where can we find, and that question is coming from Desiree Reed, where can we find your speech? And you would have shared that with us.
Yeah,
Nadia Jules is asking, is there a club, especially for contest writing?
Not that I'm aware of. I mean, obviously my club gets a lot of help because I can help now. But I mean, a lot of the world champions still belong to clubs. I don't know how it works with them helping members or if they charge, so I'm not sure. But I think events like this are how clubs and districts make sure they're giving members access to what goes into contests.
All right, so you mentioned about the growth. Did you imagine this amount of growth when you started to write?
This amount of?
Growth.
Sure. No, I had no idea. I had no idea how hard it was going to be, how exciting, how confronting. I can honestly tell you about 4 days before the finals. So I didn't even know if I was into the finals because we found out at 2 o'clock in the morning if we'd gone through, and then we had to record the very next day. But so I was working in case I got through, and the speech was coming together, and I was practicing it, and I had a goosebump moment of going, oh my word, I think I'm going to win. And then I burst into tears going, I don't want to win. Why am I doing this? This is crazy. This is too much. You know, I had all of Africa going, please win. No one's ever won here. And so it was very confronting. And then I won, which was amazing. And then I had to deal with imposter syndrome of, am I really good enough? Those other world champions are much better than me. So I have grown and learned, and you talk about the flip side, I have been facing my demons and looking at my gold and my shadow since winning. So the growth continues. It's, yeah, I think it was the movie Cool Runnings about the Jamaican bobsled team where they were trying to go to the Olympics. And in there's a line that says, if you're not enough without the trophy, you're not going to be enough with it. And that's been my biggest lesson is I've got this beautiful trophy. I'm so grateful. But any of the issues with confidence I had before, I'm still working on. You know, life continues to be a work in progress. So the growth continues. I can tell you, it doesn't get solved by winning.
All right. So I know you mentioned, I think you have a daughter that it's a daughter that you have, right?
A little boy. I've got a son.
It's a little boy. What is that one lesson that you would like him to learn from all of this?
Wow. I think it's to listen to that little voice that says, go for it, and trust it and show up. I think if he can take that into his life, the things he wants to pursue, and he goes for it and he doesn't hold himself back, I will be very happy.
All right, thank you very much. We are so excited that you came and you spent your evening with us. And at this point, we are going to ask our AD Cindy to share with you our certificate of appreciation.
Thank you. Oh, lovely. Thank you so much. Wow.
And we're so delighted to have you spending this time with us. And at this point, I'm now going to turn over to our Vice President of Education, Toastmaster, Francois Boyen. Over to you, Francois Boyen.
Thank you so much, President Ursula. Thank you so much, World Champion Verity Price. You took the time out of your busy schedule, traveled all the way. So yes, to the Caribbean island, and you're here on Antigua and Barbuda, and by far the Caribbean at large. We have our district director here with us for Caribbean 81. He's here with us, members of the executive of different Toastmasters Club across the Caribbean. And then we also have persons in South Africa who are here with us. Yes, they're breaking the sleeve just to be with you, just to be with us. Thank you so much, Toastmaster Verity, for sharing such knowledge with every one of us. And I know that all of our guests left with a lot of aha moments. I didn't know that. What? So much, and we saw it in the chat. Thank you. And I'd like to say special thanks as well to our team, those who are working behind the scenes to ensure that everything is running smooth. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This meeting will now be closed, adjourned. And the Antigua Toastmasters Club, we meet every Thursday, 6 p.m. AST. And we welcome you to listen out when we'll be having special guests to our meeting. Thank you. Blessings to every one of you. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. You know what? Good day. Have a fabulous one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next time I'll come to the Caribbean. I am open to travel.
Yes,
It's a lot more glamorous